Back, two-pointer, puts it up, too strong. Rebound, Bridges tips it out to Crowder. Bucker for three. DeAndre ate the rebound. Paul for three. Bang! Middle to the drive, blocked by Ayton, saved by Bridges. Soundtrack.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Basketball in the Mountains. This is episode 68. I'm your host, as always, Tyler King, here to talk all things hoops in the Mountain Time Zone. Got a fun episode for everybody today. A little bit of a kind of a catch up with all three of the NBA teams that we have here in the Mountain Time Zone. As you could guess, we're not just talking about the Suns today. Just kind of the intro video was not just a nod to the fact that we are talking about the Suns today, but also a little bit of a, because Chris Paul was featured prominently in then our Suns intro video, his retirement over the weekend. I wanted to give a shout out to the point guard with the intro video today as well. But obviously recording this a day after the All-Star game, which was a lot of fun, I thought. All-Star weekend as a whole, as I said, it's warts and complaints over the last couple of years, but I enjoyed the game on Sunday, and we'll talk about that a little bit here today. And to help us break down all the three teams you hear got in the Mountain Time Zone, he is Matt Moore from the Action Network and Locked On NBA, Locked On Nuggets. Matt's got two Substacks that are great reads as well, one on the Nuggets and one on the NBA as a whole. Matt, appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us here today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I know we get to catch up at Nuggets games a lot. You and I are get to see each other there at times. But let me get your take on it, because obviously I don't know if there's anybody that cares more about the league as a whole than you do, at least from the people that I've got a chance to meet here in my couple of years now here, getting a chance to be here on the Nuggets beat and meet all the people that cover the league as a whole. Just kind of what was your take on All-Star weekend as a whole, and then the game yesterday as well, which had some interesting angles to it, which I'm not sure people thought were going to work, but it seemed like it did a little bit.
Yeah, so I think the best way to kind of think of it is you're not going to get all the way back to where people kind of want the game, and I don't know when that is. For some people, it's like 1997. For some people, it's like 2005, 2010, whatever it is, wherever you want them to get back to. They're not going to get back there overnight. It's going to be a process, and so they moved in the right direction. Yes, over the weekend, where the 3-point contest was great. Dame coming in and winning it, I think, is an absolutely incredible story. That's really good. I thought Shooting Stars was a really good replacement for the skills contest. The dunk contest was pretty decent in terms of the dunks, just nobody cared about it because none of the main guys did it, and that's like the next thing they got to kind of work on. The game format was great. So whenever I travel to All-Star, I've done about 10 of them, I would always leave on Sunday, because I was like, I have no interest in watching this game. Like, I don't need to be there. There's no availability. There's nothing for me to do for my job. Like, you don't get any access to the players. They do like a presser afterwards, but it's not really useful. So I was always bailing on Sunday mornings. And so I haven't really like wanted to watch the game at all. And I sat down yesterday because I was like, well, let's see how this goes. And it was really good. It was competitive. It was interesting. I think it wasn't just the Team World versus Team USA thing. I think breaking them into smaller groups meant that you had like your guys. Yeah. Right. So it's Book and Ant and Maxey and Duran and Cade and like the young guys. And then it's like KD and LeBron. And if Steph had been there, it would have been Steph, like some of the younger guys were kind of tacked on there with those guys, and that's fine. And then you had like the international dudes in their own little group, despite the fact I always think it's funny because it's like the world. Do you think like I'm just, the Serbian has nothing in common with the French guy, and like they don't,
or the Canadian guy, like
with the Canadians. Like, there's no bond here. It'd be great if there was like if you had enough players to do like a South American and then like a European, like that would maybe be a little bit better. But overall, though, Wembanyama set the tone. Ant was great, and it was more competitive with the format that they use. So it was a step in the right direction, and it moved some of the momentum back when so much of the conversation around the league was so negative heading into All-Star.
Yeah, I thought it was really fun. I thought shout out to Wemby. Like, he's the guy that I think really set the tone for the effort that guys were playing with the entire time. I think Ant matched it pretty quickly once those two teams were getting to play first. I think the quarters, the 12-minute game kind of format you mentioned really helps the guys stay invested for that kind of short amount of time. Then they get a little bit, either they're staying on and playing another game, or they know the break is coming at some point. They're kind of not, all constantly playing. Obviously the last game was kind of a dud because the Stars team kind of jumped into that big lead, but I thought it was fun. I thought it was interesting. I think the US versus the world thing could continue to be a really nice format, because like we didn't even have SGA or Giannis in the game because those guys were hurt, and like you mentioned, some of the other key American guys were hurt, like Steph, and didn't get a chance to play. So I'm intrigued to see where it goes in over the next couple of years. I think this was a much needed. I think you said a step in the right direction. This was much needed for the game as a whole, because we're in danger of really losing this and having it become kind of what the Pro Bowl has become for the NFL, just kind of a non-factor. I think this is great. But obviously, the big reason I wanted to have you on today, just because you cover the league as a whole and are so dialed into every team in the league. But obviously, here in Denver, we'll start with the Nuggets. Just where this team is at the All-Star break now. Obviously, 35-20, 6.5 games back of OKC for first place, 3.5 back of the Spurs for second place. Obviously, Jokic has been back. The Nuggets actually struggled once Jokic finally did come back after kind of somewhat improbably going. What was it? They ended up going 9-6 or 9-5 in the games that he ended up missing. Just a remarkable stretch for those guys. But what is your take on where this team is at? I know you had a really great piece with one of your Substacks, the one I mentioned, the Denver Dig, which is on the Nuggets, about how they don't really have much wiggle room left, and now that they are mostly fully healthy, like they kind of have to get back to being the Nuggets that we thought they were going to be going into the season.
Yeah, so for them, it's unfortunate because the correct kind of, if you had gamed out how the season was going to go, it was, okay, fatten up early, push through January. It's a high density month with a lot of travel. That's tough, but you're facing weak opponents.
Yeah.
You should be able to push through there, set yourself up in a great position, be in second by some margin, and then be able to kind of handle things on the back stretch because you're home so much in March. 15 of your last 26 are at home. It's great. It's awesome. You have less games than most of the league does. About 2/3 of the league has more games than you. So you will have more time in between games, which is something you have not had. But the problem is that January was such a mess and December was such a mess with injuries. Like, it wasn't just January with Joker out because they went 10-6 in that stretch, but it's the cumulative mess of that. And the other problem was they did give up too many home games that they were just dumb losses.
Yep.
Where it's, if you just had won the Bulls game when they were on an altitude back-to-back.
I was at the game, yeah.
If you had just beaten the Kings, if you had just handled business a little bit better, you would have been in a much better position. Because predictably what happened was, they pushed through January and they go 10-6 when all of the people I talked to on Locked On Nuggets were like, they're not going to win a game. And I was like, well, no, that's not really how the NBA works. And they exceeded all the expectation. They deserve a lot of credit for that. But they also burned a lot of fuel. Jamal played 38 minutes a night. Peyton Watson's playing 34 minutes a night when he's never done that. Tim Hardaway Jr. is having to play a lot of minutes. Everybody played a lot of minutes. And that takes a toll on you. Aaron re-aggravates his hamstring. Peyton suffers the hamstring injury. And then Joker comes back off the first major injury that he's had in his career. This is the first time he's missed like this kind of games. And clearly isn't right. And I said when he came back, I was like, they're going to struggle when he gets back. Now, then he comes back versus the Clippers and drops 31 points in 25 minutes. And it's like, oh, I guess not. Maybe Joker's just the exception. No, they're 1-4 since then. So now the problem is, okay, post All-Star, you have this easy stretch of schedule travel-wise, but you face much better teams. They don't have any more wiggle room. You don't get to be like, well, it was a bad schedule spot, or, well, sometimes this happens. They just didn't have it. No, like they can lose like 1, maybe 2 more home games, and that's it. They got to sweep the board the rest of the way at home, and they got to manage to go 500 on the road. They have to do this in order to maintain a top 3 seed in the Western Conference. You got to get a top 3 seed. And so they're in third right now. And they're within range of second, but like they do not it's go time. They have to push. And it's especially bad because Aaron and Peyton are not going to be back for another 2 weeks. So they're just going to have to like figure this out, push hard early, hope to fatten up at home, and hope that the other teams, you're hoping basically that a lot of the teams that you're going to face in March and April are having what you had in January, where it's like, we're tired, we're exhausted, we've been traveling, we're on a 3rd and 4 back-to-back, we're exhausted, we're banged up, and you take advantage of that. They cannot have any more what happened there games. They just can't. It's got to be a consistent effort every night, because the schedule in terms of the opponent strength is too tough, and what they're up against is too tight for them to be able to mess around anymore.
Yeah, I've been talking about this for a while here on the show, just the how tough the Nuggets schedule gets after the All-Star break. Obviously, they have 3 out of 4, 3 and 4 days on the road this weekend to kick off. They're at the Clippers, at the Blazers, and then at the Warriors. And then, like you said, that they have a bunch of home games in a row, or not in a row, but in a large amount of home games in a short amount of time. And it starts with Boston, then Minnesota comes, the Lakers, the Knicks, the Sixers, the Rockets, like all these like quality teams are coming to Ball Arena in March, and it is going to be difficult. And it's kind of weird when you look at their numbers overall. Like they're 15-11 at home and 20-9 on the road. Now they took care of business against some bad Eastern Conference teams on the road, like you mentioned in that January stretch. But are you still a little bit perplexed by just kind of the Nuggets' struggles at home this season, because they have been such a dominant home team for the last couple of years, mostly during the Jokic era, and obviously the altitude advantage and all that? Are you puzzled a little bit, as I am, by some of the home struggles?
After their first home game, I told Darren McKee of Altitude that they were going to go 38-3 at home. I was so confident. I was like, they're going 38-3. No worries, D-Mac. No, not quite. I do not understand how this team is that. Like, this stretch this week, I'm not necessarily bothered by, right? Because it's like, look, you were on the road versus the Thunder, then the Pistons and the Knicks on a back-to-back. You come home and face the Cavs, who are red hot. Like, this happens, okay? Like, that is part of the things that happens. But they had so many random losses along the way to give them this problem. It is interesting because you mentioned like the road record. It almost washes out, where it's like, look, you've not been good at home, but you were so good on the road that covers for it. It's just really important that they not continue that, right? If they continue to struggle, it's like, if you've been bad at home and good on the road, but you have more road games or more home games than road games, that's not good for you. So they got to get back to a stabilization point where it's like, you should win your games at home, especially in altitude, especially late in the season, especially when you're this good. Your road performance, okay, you're at San Antonio on the second night of a back-to-back. All right, I can't expect you to win that one, right? You're at the Lakers on a 3rd and 4 back-to-back, 3rd and 4 nights trip on March 14th. That's not a good schedule spot for you. You're facing a top 5 Western Conference team, Luka Doncic, fighting for playoff position. But on the flip side of this, you mentioned like they play Minnesota at home in March. The next night they're on the road versus Utah. Okay, they're going to let you win that one. You got to get that win. They have a home back-to-back versus the Lakers and Knicks. That's a huge set. Yep. They have to sweep that set. And the Knicks have given them nightmares for the last 2 seasons. They have had the answer for this team. They got to win a back-to-back versus the Lakers and the Knicks, because they just can't afford that many more home losses. They just can't. You cannot leave it up to chance. So all of these games become super important. They're at home versus the Mavericks. Guess what? That's a back-to-back after being on the road in Phoenix. So they've got to, for them, they won't think of it this way. They will look at it as like, we just need to play good basketball. And I totally get that. Focus on the process, focus on what's in front of you. But my concern is like, look, if you do not adjust course and get everybody on the same page and get back to playing how you were at the beginning of the season, if you do not do that, and I mean in a hurry, you are going to wind up in the 5th seed, which means that you're going to face a tough opponent in the first round, probably go 7, and then you're going to have OKC in the second round. And that's the path gets too difficult then. Yeah. That's the reason I focus so much on this, is you have to have a path where it's like, all right, that round's going to be tough because it's the Western Conference and every round is tough, but we'll have home court. There's a chance we can get out of that series in 5 or 6. And every single game you don't play gives you a better chance against OKC.
Yeah, we saw that last year and how dead the Nuggets were by, really kind of game 5. And they had enough in game 6. And the home momentum and all that kind of stuff to force a game 7, but they obviously, with Aaron Gordon's injury, they were kind of dead on arrival in game 7 in OKC. Last thing on the Nuggets, like, what do you want to see from them on the court over the next couple of weeks? Obviously, you mentioned Joker is still kind of working his way back into being the MVP like playing the best maybe he's ever played. I think obviously that Christmas night game against Minnesota was like the peak of how good he was early this season. What do you want to see from him and the rest of this team as they, like you said, get back to full strength? Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, barring any more injuries, because it's just kind of been that kind of year for the Nuggets, who kind of have 6 starters at this point with how well Peyton Watson has played this season. Like they have 6 starting caliber players, and even Tim Hardaway Jr., like I said, has played heavy minute loads at times. Like, what do you want to see from this group as they try to work all of the pieces that have emerged in different and interesting ways throughout the season, like kind of meshing them on the court heading into the postseason?
It's been 6 games since Joker came back. I need to see another 6 games of him playing like this for me to be really worried. I expect him to come back out of the All-Star break and just look like himself and start racking up 30-point triple doubles with low turnover rates. They got to get that turnover rate back down. That was such a huge part of their success for the first 3/4 of the season. They've got to get back to not turning the ball over, because when they don't turn the ball over, they win in an 80% clip with Joker and Jamal. And it just is what it is. Don't turn the ball over, win the game. Second is the defense. I don't think they can get the defense where it needs to be until they get Aaron back. I just don't think that they have the ability to do that. Obviously, they need to sign Spencer Jones, so they have, a power forward. But then also they need to be able to show I really want to see that first week in March and see Aaron, Peyton, Joker, Jamal, Christian, Cam, the whole complement. I want to see the whole complement and look at, all right, you were a top 2 defense for that first 12 games.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't expect them to be that, but I need them to be somewhere that is not 24th.
Yeah.
Right. I need them to be 15th or better. I preferably like 12th. I would feel really good about if it's like you were the second best defense for the first 10th of the season, and you were the 27th best defense for the middle part of the season, and you finished the last 2 months of the season and you're 12th. Okay, that's good enough. Your offense is legit to the point where I don't need to worry about things if you can show that defensive effort. They need to be able to show kind of that there's room in the rotation for everybody, because they haven't had to deal with that problem in a while. Peyton was a bit player to start the season. He was the same kind of like bench role 3-and-D kind of guy, and he's obviously expanded his on-ball game. They've needed his offense a lot. He's one of their better defenders. Christian's having a good stretch of games. Need to see more of that. Figuring out the bench units. Like there's just they've had so many disruptions. I don't know what they are able to say that they've made progress on. So there's a lot for them to do in this 2-month span. Now it's 2 months. So with 2 months, you should be able to get it done. But that's really going to be, I think, the question going forward.
All right, let's move on to the Suns, because obviously they have been one of the better, more feel-good stories and surprises in the league all season. We've talked about them here on the show quite a bit. They're still remaining 7th. They're 32-23, already above their preseason over/under win total, which was either 30.5 or 31.5, depending on where you looked. I took the over, but I wasn't expecting them to go above maybe 35 or 36. I thought that would have still been a successful bounce back season and try to get the vibes right, but they have far surpassed that. I would still be surprised if they are anything but the 7th seed going into playoffs, just kind of given how good the top 6 of the West is and the gap that they've built on Golden State for the top play-in spot. But what is your take on this Phoenix team that is just good vibes and playing hard under Jordan Knott? Because Devin Booker, I think, has had a solid season, not like one of his best, but obviously they've gotten a lot out of Dylan Brooks and the variety of role guys, Colin Gillespie, chief among them. Like, how kind of still surprised are you at where Phoenix is this season, kind of just given everything that's happened in the last couple of years with Durant, Beal, coaching firings, all that kind of stuff?
I was super high on their over, and even I did not expect anything like this. Did not expect them to be over 500 and competing for an outright playoff spot. I think Jordan Knott's coach of the year. I just think he is. Joe Mazzulla has been phenomenal. It's great the way he's accomplished with Jason Tatum. But, I mean, this roster is role players. It is all role players. Book's missed a lot of time. Jalen Green's missed a lot of time. And they have kept winning. They play the most connected brand of basketball, I think, in the league this season. They are so connected on, off the court. Their bench vibes are awesome. He's fostered the right culture environment, and the X's and O's stuff is great. I've loved what I've seen from all their young guys. I really like Oso Ighodaro. I liked him coming into the season, but he's just given him so many good minutes. It's been really great to see Colin Gillespie step in and take this kind of a role. Dylan, obviously, being the kind of leader that he's been, is a really cool story given his reputation. And I have, more than anything, I have loved watching Book have this kind of joy.
Yeah.
Because he has played with so much joy this season. And that's been really great to see, because I think that the pressure of the last couple of seasons was so miserable for him with all the personalities and egos and everything else. And I don't think that that's anybody's fault. It's just like what it is. But I think that Booker has played like his numbers aren't phenomenal. Like they're not like, oh my God, it's like an MVP. But I love the way that he's played more. And I think that that really matters.
I think so too. And I think this is you wanted to see, kind of a better vibes just all around from this group, and you honestly couldn't have gotten much worse after kind of the way last season ended. But has this season at all changed like your outlook for Phoenix going forward and just kind of what they can be? Because I agree with you. I think Jordan Knott is the coach of the year. I've said that multiple times. Talking about them on the show here, I just think it's just no one is doing or has been asked to do what he's been able to do this season. Obviously, the draft situation is still not great. The cap situation for them, the financial stuff is getting a little bit better. We'll see what they do with some of the movable contracts that they have going forward. But how has the season changed by what they could be? Because obviously, I don't know if you can survive forever on Booker and role guys, but it just feels like at least it's a nice palate cleanser, and then maybe they can start building toward whatever the next iteration of a trying to compete for a top 3 seed in the West is.
They need to give Ishbia tranquilizers to keep him sedated, because like the biggest thing is like you just got to be patient here.
Yeah.
Be really selective, be really careful. Don't do the thing. I think there are times to be aggressive. I think especially the biggest thing I always kind of think is if you make a surprise run, like if you make a Western Conference Finals when you're not supposed to, you should parlay that into like, okay, we probably weren't that good, but we could be. How can we actually get there? What can we do to kind of get there? The other side of this, though, I think is where Phoenix is at, which is you can't take a team where it's like, what made you good? Your chemistry, your continuity, how your guys fit together, the system, everybody playing a role, the sacrifice. You can't do that and then be like, okay, so what if we kept that, but we added this megastar that completely changes everything? Like, you already did this. Learn your lesson. Do not go chasing those stars. Don't try and be like, we could get in on the Giannis deal, or oh man, like this aging star is available, we could get this guy. Do not do that.
They just did it with Kevin Durant and it didn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. You just did it. Be opportunistic. Look around and be like, what players fit with Book? What does this team really need? Is Mark Williams good enough to be like your long-term center? Do you need an upgrade there? Is there a guy that can you get that guy? Right.
Who's the eventual Royce O'Neal replacement? Because he's obviously getting up there, but he's played well. Yeah.
Right. Like, who's your stretch 4 that can defend? How do you take this and how do you like incrementally improve them while also trying to get Book in the best place for him to have an MVP level season? That needs to be the goal. They just got to be really careful. There's a wide gap here between settling for mediocrity. This team is not like an Eastern Conference play-in team. They're not hovering around 500. Yeah. They're good. Like, they're good. Don't try and rush it to be like, we're going to go for it. Don't do that. Be very selective and patient. And if you do that, you could probably wind up with like a slow burn, and you still have the years. You can turn into a team that is in the mix every year and is a serious team, which they were not for several seasons.
Last thing on Phoenix, are of the guy, obviously it's kind of like everybody kind of collectively raising everybody else kind of thing, where it's just like the sum is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of the parts kind of thing. But is there anybody individually this season for Phoenix that you think like what they're doing is real and is going to could translate not just to another team, but that person will continue to get better and be a key part of what Phoenix does going forward?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit there. Say again.
Just anybody individually on Phoenix that is obviously this is a collective group effort, but is anybody that you feel like the individual performance is real and that person will continue to get better and become an even bigger piece of what Phoenix wants to do going forward?
I love Jordan Goodwin's like long-term outlook. I just think that he's got like a really great curve. I loved him in LA. I thought it was a mistake for them to lose him.
Yep.
35% from 3 can obviously get a little bit better, but I look at what he's able to bring defensively, offensively, like the whole kind of package. And I just think that there's a really good player in there that can kind of evolve into a well-rounded wing. Even if he's 27, so it's like he's not a spring chicken, but next 3 years he can still turn into an even better player. I think also, I'm still pretty high on Ryan Dunn. I still think that there's a lot of upside with Dunn. I think there's a good opportunity there for him. I mentioned Iguodaro. He's another guy that I really like. And those are the kind of, I think, the key guys that I think can really kind of develop. There's so much potential for them to go in these different ways and just become more well-rounded and complete players. And I think that really matters when you're trying to develop the way Phoenix is.
Yeah, I mean, they're using the tools that they have at their disposal. Late first round picks, second round picks with guys like Iguodala, like you said, kind of getting guys off that were cast offs in other places like Goodwin, who I think is their style player. I've liked Jamari Bouye at times as a two-way player. He's been pretty solid for them in kind of that third point guard spot. So all this stuff is just kind of them operating on the margins in a much better way than they had in previous years, which kind of arguably was the reason they that big three kind of failed. Other than those guys all together not living up to it, but they didn't have pieces around them that kind of made it all fit. So just an incredibly, as I said multiple times now, throughout the last couple months on the show, just incredibly encouraging season for Phoenix and the palate cleanser that I think they needed. All right, we'll wrap up today with Utah, just talking a little bit about I want to get your take on what, obviously it was only 49 minutes with Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. On the court together in those 3 games where they didn't play in the fourth quarter at all. And obviously Triple J is out for the rest of the season with that surgery he had for whatever kind of weird knee thing they discovered. But what was your initial reaction on that very small sample size of those two guys kind of playing together? Obviously Keontae was out for those games too, so we're not really even, and Walker Kessler's out for the year. It's still very, very small sample size, and it's only 2 of the 4 guys that they're kind of building around going forward. But did you like what you saw from those two guys as a front court 3-4 pairing?
Yeah, they're gonna be a monster, man. The Jazz are gonna be a monster next season, which is, I've gone to war with their fans over the tanking stuff. And I totally understand all the reasons for why. They are going to be a wagon. This team is pretty good. Will Hardy's a good coach. Keontae George is awesome. It's not just the pairing of Jaren and Kessler or Jaren and Lauri. It's like that trio and the way that they complement one another, where it's like Lauri's shooting and Jaren spacing with Kessler's interior ability. Jaren's rim protection behind Lauri, Jaren's rim protection but lack of rebounding next to Walker. Having all these kind of combos, and then whoever they get in the draft, like they're going to be good. Like they're just going to be good. They're going to be, their pathway is anywhere between 40 and 50 wins next season. Like that's where I would put the range at before we get into the draft and free agency. That's what I think they're going to wind up as, somewhere between 40 and 50 wins. And I just think that combination, I loved everything that they did. I just think that this combination, I hope they don't get rid of Lauri. I hope they keep him. I hope they don't lose Kessler. Hope they keep him, because I think this combo is great. You have the 2 big lineup without compromising spacing, because Jaren can actually space to 3 when he's not in a terrible system like Memphis. You have Lauri's ability to be a premier scorer. You have Keontae as a guy that can leverage and get downhill. You had any sort of 2 guard with any sort of weaponry on ball, and you have a really terrifying team that I think that's going to be able to just absolutely wreak havoc in the Western Conference that's already loaded. The Jazz are going to be awesome next year.
Yeah, I was gonna ask who you think, or kind of what skill set you think is the ideal 5th starter. I mean, that person can be better than a quote unquote 5th starter, but the 5th person to pair with those 4 guys, like I mentioned, because obviously Ace Bailey could be that guy. I think he's had an interesting rookie season. I don't think it's not a disaster, but by any stretch of the mean, but it's certainly not anywhere near the other top rookies in the league that have really kind of burst on the scene. Like what do you think they should be looking for out of that 5th starter spot? I mean, obviously, if they get Darren Peterson in the draft, that would be awesome.
It's like, wow, Darren Peterson fits really well here. I don't know what else they can kind of get. If they decide to go on the trade market, I'd be kind of curious to see what else they could get. They talked about, they kicked the tires on Isaiah Collier and saw kind of what his trade value was. I don't take a lot away from that in terms of Ainge. Both of them in particular tend to test the waters early on guys on their rookie deals, because they want to establish what's their trade value before they commit to the extension. But if they were to move Collier, they could probably move him for some sort of 2-guard option. There's probably a number of kind of ways that you can go about this. If they play their cards right, I wouldn't be surprised if they work themselves into some sort of team where, they have that kind of upside. Look, I'm not going to be surprised if they put in a huge offer sheet for Austin Reeves. I'm just not going to be surprised if they put in a huge offer. Now, Austin might just turn around and resign with the Lakers anyway, but that's a really good option. Like, it just is. It's a really good option. Do I worry about Lauri and Reeves together in a defensive situation? Sure, but
a team gets really expensive really quick, because Keontae is extension eligible this summer. That probably won't happen, because the Walker Kessler thing is going to be interesting with his restricted free agency, all that kind of stuff. But that would be really, really fascinating.
Yeah, so it's probably not going to happen. But I do think that in general, like there's so many options, and even if you just add a pure 3 and D2 guard,
Like
that's
Steve
perfectly fine.
Mikhailuk, but better kind of thing.
Right. And so like if you just add that kind of a guy, I think you're going to be in a really good spot to kind of balance out that starting unit.
Last thing on Utah, and last thing before I get you out of here, Matt. What have you made about Keontae's season overall? Like I've talked about how real I think it is many times, throughout the last couple months. And obviously, he was a guy that I liked coming out of the draft. I really liked his first season at Baylor. I was willing to bet on the upside, even if the Baylor system kind of gets clunky at times for guards, which we've seen with Edgecombe in the past too. I did not see this coming. Like I was kind of down on him after his first 2 seasons in the league, and I was just kind of giving up on him being this kind of really kind of a high quality starter player. I thought he could be, a first kind of 6-man off the bench kind of guy, but he's just kind of blown past that this year. What have you made of how real and how impressive his season has been?
Yeah, I've really just been impressed by the way that he's able to bend defenses and then punish them for their reaction. I just think he's been really good in all those kind of capacities. The fact that he's got the shooting was one thing, but we didn't really even flash the playmaking ability. And for him to have like evolved so much on that end, where it's like he's a double dimer a lot of nights, that's absolutely terrific. He's also really well balanced, where he can shoot from range, he can shoot from mid range, and he can get to the rim, and he converts them. And that conversion,
the conversion at the rim was the biggest thing.
Yeah. So, that's actually way bigger than I think than people realize, because when you look up and down, I've been doing this. If you look up and down at the great elite guards in this league, and I'm talking Cade and Brunson and those guys, all of them, their numbers at the rim are pretty pedestrian.
Yeah.
Like they're not high level.
Even like Tyrese Maxey struggles at the rim sometimes.
Yeah. And Keontae's been terrific in terms of, now we'll see what kind of happens once defenses are actually like, oh, we should actually try defending this team. They're going to try. Yeah. But I do think that it all kind of promises really highly for the possibility of Keontae being an all-star. I think he's most improved player this year. He would have my vote. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've said that as well. I think he's got a really, really strong case. Well, Matt, I really appreciate you taking the time to come talk to us about all these teams. Obviously, like I said, you're dialed into everybody in the league, and I'm sure if whoever listens to this podcast already follows you on Twitter. But anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, check out Locked On NBA Daily. It's a really fun show that I check out, that I do every day, Monday through Friday. Just go to youtube.com/LockedOnNBA.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you copping on. I'm sure I'll see you at Ball Arena for these one of these many exciting home games that the Nuggets have coming up here before the end of the regular season.
See you later, man.
All right, that'll do it for today's episode of Basketball in the Mountains. Thanks again to Matt Moore at HP Basketball. Like I said, I'm sure everybody follows him on Twitter if you're watching this show. Appreciate his time and appreciate all of you for listening to today's show. Like I said every time, if you're listening, make sure or on Spotify or Apple, make sure to subscribe to the feed wherever you do so, or subscribe to the YouTube channel if you prefer to watch all the episodes on there. Leave those 5-star ratings on Apple or Spotify, all that stuff. It's super appreciated by me, and leave likes on the YouTube videos, all that kind of stuff. You've heard the spiel at this point, but appreciate Matt for taking his time, and appreciate all of you for listening, and enjoy the weekend of basketball that's coming up for the NBA once that restarts.